Hey, friends, Sunday, 30th of August, 2026. I am seated in a little resort spot somewhere in downtown Tulum, Mexico, headed to Cancun first thing in the morning with my little chihuahua to get her papers and what have you before boarding a plane and heading to Portugal, where I will be seeing my mama after a long period. I think we spent Christmas together, New Year's Eve, and that was the last I saw of any of my family, actually. And I've spent the last 8 months positioned here in the Americas, done with the Americas for the near future, for the foreseeable future, headed to Portugal, and then onward to Africa, a number of countries there to consolidate the commodities piece that we're working on behind the New Earth financial and economics platform, the new xearth.com platform. So very exciting stuff there, a lot of diplomacy the next few months and whistle stopping to really consolidate the work that we've spent the last 2 years preparing for. The great vertical upshift, I believe, is 2027, next year. I've felt this for a long time. I felt that midpoint last year, 25, was a very important kind of, not a pivot point, it was really more an alchemization point for the geometry of light shifting in the world, and that's why we positioned ourselves in Tennessee and Tenacity and performed that particular sacrament on that day, midsummer of 2025. And looking back over my shoulder, I now know that we were right, absolutely right. That was, in a sense, inception point of the emergence of the Rainbow Warrior tribe. And I'm satisfied in my own mind that that's exactly what was taking place on that dateline. And then moving to 2026, this year, a year of, how do I put it politely? A year of shittery and fuckery at a level that I can't really remember. I know that one looks at one's own life as a fractal of the whole, and provided we are in a state of grace or truth within the state of witness, we have to call out what it is that we're seeing. And I can tell you, through the lens of this heart, I have seen just a rupture, a seismic rupturing of identity, okay? Identity. And I think that that's, for me, what the signature is of shift that's upon us. It's an identity dissolution, deconstruction, dissolution, and reconstruction. And that's not a pivot point. That's an existential calamity, in a sense. And the more people I've spoken to around the world, again, good humans who are speaking honestly and not speaking from the egoic persona, false light identity, who everyone says, oh, everything's fucking wonderful all the time. Look at these goddamn morons on social media. It's always wonderful. Life is always amazing. No, it fucking isn't. Life is tough, really tough. And to those of us who are actually doing the actual work of alchemizing the fallen light of Atlantis into the new Earth horizon, are actually going through hell. Apocalypse. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and so on. Fortuitously, we have the Lazarus community here, and I'm preaching to the converted, so that gives me some solace and makes me feel good that there is a kind of community spirit here, where I know that we've engendered thousands of people in this community who do stand in honor and in truth, in grace. And I salute you for it, and I thank you for it. But I'm sensing that what we've just witnessed in the last week with the totemism, the symbolism of Mount Kailash, of Tibet, Nepal, China, that vector of apocalypse, scenes, biblical scenes emerging on the screens. A lot of them AI, I have to say, but nonetheless apocalyptic. And the totemism there is profound, incredibly profound. And what that augurs, in a sense, is something which I think is very, very sobering. And I think that each of us need to ground ourselves very, very starkly and deeply in our own lives. Really anchor yourself and be somewhat prepared, because the movement is underway. I'll say something else here. Looking in at Alex Jones yesterday briefly, and he says that, you know, this Melinda Gates and the McCain woman now coming out and calling for the prosecution, or Melinda Gates calling for the prosecution of Bill Gates. Alex says, well, that's just rats jumping off the ship, and that's true, but it is huge. It's huge. Alex goes on to say that in his view, that is the line that's now been crossed that determines the fact that the battle is all but won, or the war is all but won. It's kind of over now that we're seeing it landing. So of course we discussed Anthony Fauci in recent weeks because of the Senate hearings and so on. And all of that stuff comes down the pike 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years after people like me were screaming about it. In fact, I was screaming about it almost 20 years ago, about the geoengineering piece and the vaccination piece. I was publishing articles at that time, white papers, so to speak, and disseminating those articles. So that's on the record. But here we have it, and it's all landing in broad daylight. So I just want to move into today's Lazarus Symposium. I'm about to bring your most beloved George H. Lewis on. But I want us just to hold in our mind's eye the sobering horror of what it is that we've just all witnessed in Nepal, because that's not going away. The biggest El Nino on record, human record, is apparently approaching. I think that and whether it's geoengineered by Sabbatean motherfuckers and Kabbalists in the basement, that's neither here nor there, or whether it's an organic unfoldment of revelation. It's almost not important whether it's geoengineered, man-made, or it's a natural revelation. Either which way, what is revealing in the light of day is happening as a counterpoint to what it is that we're requiring to meet existentially and to metabolize existentially. So keep that in mind as we move into a introductory debriefing of the Alpha and the Omega with my beloved, most beloved George H. Lewis. George, you're so welcome.
Oh, it's so good to be here. And you do set the tone very beautifully in a sense of sharing the collective grief. And it's much bigger than just Nepal. It is, whether it's geoengineered, as you said, I happen to believe it is deeply manipulated, becomes irrelevant in a way, because it does force us into the alchemical process. And those 4 stages, nigredo, which is the blackening, the dissolution, into the albedo, which is the purification, the whitening, through to the citronescence, which is the illumination, the yellowing, and then finally into the rubedo, which is the embodiment, the reddening. And of course, we repeat the cycle. It's really forcing us to do the work. And that, to me, is what's so powerful. And your voice, your tone today really reveals that we can't do it any other way. We really are being actually supported by the cosmic winds to really go much deeper and to become freer. I mean, I just want to share this because I really don't think many people really reveal this about Saturn. There are these things called decans in astrology. And each specific decan, there are 3 decans in each zodiac sign. Each decan has its own rulership within that sign. So for example, Aries' first decan is ruled by Mars. The second decan in Aries historically is known to be the most powerful, ruled by the sun, because that's the sun's exalted. And the third decan is ruled by Venus. We tend to see people who are born at the end of Aries a little bit more Venusian, less warlike. What's so interesting with Saturn, we all know Saturn's in his fall in Aries. He's now at 13, 14 degrees Aries. That's the weakest part of the entire zodiac. What does Saturn represent? He represents the World Economic Forum, London, the City of London, the royal family. All the old Saturnian systems are now in utter freefall. And so I want people, when they're scared or feel uncertain, which we all are, me included at times, just to very calmly look at the cosmological map and take a breath, because it can look scary, because the propaganda wing of the legacy media is designed to do that, to keep us in the fear. Ultimately, as you just have said, the battle really, actually the war, you're right, the war has been won. Now, battle's ahead, but light is really happening, and we can do our alchemical processing into the Negredo, which really happened for so many people during the 2020s. For people like you, Sacha, and many of us in this community, we've been at it for a while. But the Negredo is that initial dissolution when you go into anger and grief, because you can't believe what you've just gone through, but actually what you've been told is a pack of lies. And then they have this quieter time, which kind of we're all in now. It's the albedo, it's the purification, it's retreating back and just staying the observer, especially with the third process, the citrinitas, which is the illumination, the yellowing. Often when we're illuminated, we don't speak. It's the quietest moment of the process. And finally, we learn to embody it, which is the rubedo, which is the reddening. And this is a great time for Saturn in Aries, because you become Saturn, we become Saturn, I become Saturn, meaning the sovereign of your ship, the captain of your ship. You don't give power away to doctor, to politician, to archetypal parent any longer, as sovereign adults. You become the master of your own destiny. And this is the great awakening that the galactic pioneers of the Pleiades and all the ancestral Chinese knowledge comes from, the sacredness of the Peruvian shaman and the American shamans that you're very close to, Sacha. It doesn't matter which legacy we go to, this is a time for our radical assertion of self-sovereignty, and it's happening.
Beautiful, thank you. And you just so succinctly...
I think you're muted. You're muted.
I'm not muted.
Is it me?
No. No, I'm not muted.
I can't hear.
Oh, he just popped off. So maybe, can you hear me okay, George?
I should have been muted there. Are you hearing me now?
Hello?
Are you hearing me, Christy? Are you hearing me?
I can hear you fine. I did notice George.
I think I might exit and come back in because I can't hear anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Christy, was that George's technical issue, not mine?
Yeah, he's been a little glitchy since the beginning.
Okay, understood. Very good. Okay, well, what I want to speak to actually, and you know, amazing. He just answered the first question I was going to ask perfectly, so I don't even need to ask the question, and he took it into the financial realm. Who's controlling the money? And I don't need to proselytize to the Lazarus audience because they're intelligent enough. But to some people out there, because this is a bonus debrief segment going out on social media, some people might not understand the refinement through the lens of what does money totemize? What does finance mean? What is economics? What is money? And in my parlance, in what I've been pushing out for over 2 decades, money is a created totem of fear, of Cronus, of time. So money is the perfect totem of an unconscious civilization. Let me bring George in. Are you with me, George?
I am, yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't...
Yeah, I'm just giving a rudimentary lesson to people green around the gills as to what economics truly is. There's nothing emancipated about it. So I think, because as we were speaking to financial sovereignty, what's going on with the geoengineering? What is the huge meta agenda? It's always invariably connected to socioeconomics. And how to drive, how the Cabal, how the Sabbatean Babylonian priesthood are driving agendas by using economics. Social ecology and social economy become the driver, and which is mindfuckery through propaganda, through Dreamspell, through Hollywood, through all of that. But even older than that, going back to the genesis of the English language and the syntax that we use, which is spellbinding, which is Saturnian language. So we've all been, for thousands of years, been incubated steadily into the thrall of the false light, even in the way that we speak and exchange. But the point I'm trying to make here is that money is a totem of fear. Money is a totem of time and fear, scarcity. It's how an unconscious star nation emerges through the fog of the abyss. We end up transacting with gold rather than transacting with the real gold, which is the immanence that comes out of each of us, the ideation, the beautiful imaginings. But we start to trade with cowrie shells and little things that sparkle, and then we clamber out of the cave and move into a more emancipated state of being a zero-point economy, ultimately, a true cost economics realm. And then once we're into the transcendent stellar nations and we've evolved, we don't use money and economics or finance at all, because there's no need for that nonsense. And that's the piece I just wanted to speak to here, that money is tethered to time, tethered to fear, tethered to entropy, tethered to the great sleep from which we are emerging. And the question I wanted to then put to you, George, was really connected to the eclipses that we've just been through, because that took a cricket bat to the back of my head.
Okay, so I mean, I'm curious to know with you, what planets have you got in the early stages of Pisces or in the mutables?
Wouldn't know stuff like that, but I can tell you I took a cricket back to the back of the head. You can do the guesswork.
It's highly likely then, Sacha, that you've got planets in the beginning part of the mutables, which I've always suspected you do, because you're a polymath and you're able to use language very fast, and the mutables tend to be very linguistic, especially like things like Gemini. And the thing is with the eclipse, early Pisces, it was on Fomalhaut, which was one of the royal stars. It's to do with the visionary, and it's either going to put people more into depression, into that Neptunian sense of not being able to cope, wanting to leave. I mean, I have unfortunately seen quite a few suicides recently. The other side of it is a massive spiritual awakening. I mean, I love the work of Darius J. Wright, because he does talk so eloquently and brilliantly and truthfully, a bit like our friend Daniel Brinkley, about what's on the other side. And when we can conquer that illusion that we call death, when we can really, really, in a stand, there's another understanding of the language, you see, we can conquer it, and so we can stand in our own immanence. I mean, I want to be positive to the community here. I want to show just how good things are going to be and are beginning to be. I mean, let's just look at Trump taking down piece by piece the deep state plan. The Federal Reserve, the power of the Federal Reserve is very slowly but very manifestly being taken away and rolled into the Treasury. I believe it's already happened, but it has to play out for Tom, Dick and Fanny, the restructuring of the Federal Reserve. I mean, Trump has put, it's amazing today, he just did a deal with on the oil with Venezuela, which is unprecedented. I mean, it's so big that it's already doubling the oil supply and reserves of the United States overnight. It's going to bring our fuel costs down hugely in a way that we actually can't comprehend. It's so novel, this, that the deep state's going to collapse very quickly. So we're having all the ratting out, as you just mentioned. It's always going to start to happen like that when the pendulum swings. People realize they've got to give it up, because they're either going to have to convert, or they're going to probably all go to prison. We're going to have a massive Nuremberg trials. It will happen. It's real. For many of us in our community, we've had to wait longer than we thought. I would never have dreamt in 2020 that it would have taken this long. But I was naive, and I was listening to, it doesn't matter who I was listening to, but it's never going to play out the way we think it is. And that's part of letting go that you said right at the beginning of this. It is truly a spiritual journey in every sense. I don't know whether that answers the question, but I'm humbled, and I'm brought to my knee in a good Saturn way. I'm not bending the knee like Saturn asked me to do. I'm humbled in front of God, source creator, to love one's human being once again much more. I've grown so much because I think that's why I can teach it, because I think I was probably quite narcissistic, quite frankly, 5 or 6 years ago, and it's been knocked the shit out of me.
I very much doubt that there's a shred or a trace of narcissism.
No, that's not true. I'm human. No, you're very sweet, Sacha, but you've only known me for 2 years. Okay, remember that. It's new, and of course we're finding each other soul family. But it's like, wow. And in that sense, keep that positive frequency. The stuff we're learning on structured water, the stuff we're learning on agriculture, animal husbandry, reconnecting to the land like you're doing in Tenasserim. It's so beautiful. So yes, Nepal and Tibet and Colombia, it's so shocking. But we have to breathe, we have to stay in our community, we have to touch each other, we have to hug each other, we have to really stay present in what we can control, dare I use that word, where we can control in our own environment, because that's where we prosper through our creativity with, like, you, me, us now. That's all we can do.
Yes. Well, indeed. I mean, for me, Tenasserim and what we're doing there is a microcosm. It's a spot just in Middle America, but the works we're doing in Africa is far more comprehensive, and that's more connected to establishing the entire parameter of a new economic metric and a financial metric, and a means by which we can step into full sovereignty and autonomy in the fiat banking world as well as in the crypto banking world and the exchange and commodities world. So that's a big play. And so I know in the work that I'm doing within New Earth, it's very symbolic of the emancipation of Homo sapiens sapien into full autonomy, away from Cronus and the crown and the state and the deep state. So that's happening, and I'm involved in those conversations even at the diplomatic level. So it's very interesting to see how there is a possibility now for us to make moves that we could not have possibly made 3 years ago, or 10 years ago, and 15 years ago would have been shot dead before dawn, by one of the Clinton-sponsored assassins, probably. But let's move on. Communications networks, trading platforms, and the old internet itself are becoming increasingly unstable. So the existing digital foundation is exposing its weaknesses, and this financial and technological instability may intensify under the coming Venus retrograde. So the question is whether we are watching deliberate disruption, natural systemic failure, or the birth of an entirely new architecture. So the question I have for you, George, is how do Venus retrograde, Pluto in Aquarius, and Uranus in Gemini explain this systemic instability, and how can we use these energies more effectively?
So Venus rules money, and this is the interesting thing. So we're going to see over the next 3 to 4 months, because of the Venus retrograde, which actually starts at the beginning of October, but Venus moves into Scorpio, and Venus is in her fall in Scorpio, and then she moves back into Libra a bit, and then she moves forward for the final time into Scorpio, then through to Sagittarius. This whole process is really going to take us through to the end of the year. When we see Venus there in Scorpio, especially the way she's making her alignments with the other planets, where I do see this as the new financial system really starting to take shape. Now, many of us in the past thought it was going to be like a switch of a button, suddenly from that to this. And what we're all realizing is that would have been way too unstable for all of us. In order to have a smooth transition where humans don't panic, it reminds me of that movie, the chickens, we mustn't panic. We have to create some form of stability. And I would argue, I sense, it's my heart that tells me this, not my intellect, that there are benevolent powers behind which we don't see, but many of us can tap into when we choose to quieten ourselves, that this is going to be a smooth transition. It's in the bag. And the old Venusian negative system of the fiat currency is beginning to be replaced. I mean, many of us are getting much more familiar with cryptocurrency now. Many of us in our community also have been advocating for gold and silver and copper, which also, by the way, is ruled by Venus. Venus rules copper and tin rules Jupiter. So it's going to be really interesting to see as we go through the eclipse, after the eclipse, because we're still in the fallout of the eclipse. As we go through the Venus retrograde, we will probably see some form of massive disruption to the financial system, but I think we're prepared for it. I think it's not going to be too long, but it's going to happen, and this is where we have to do the meditation and the practice, the spiritual practice. We need it to happen. When you stay the observer, it can't continue as is. We all know that SWIFT system is broken. And part of the Straits of Hormuz and part of Venezuela, I mean, I also think, quite frankly, Iran is connected to those negative portals. I think Dr. Salah and his team and Gene Decode are on something. The Middle East is, in a way, in Sacha Stone's language, it's the inversion through, it's the negative Luciferian. It is the negative, let me get this, it's Yahweh. And we want a return to Yeshua. And in a way, the battle today is between Khazaria and Tartaria, the Tartars and the Khazars. And the Khazars with the Sabbateans, as you call it, which is the hybridization with the Jesuits. And it's people right at the top of the Jesuit community. It's not the average Jesuit priest. They're all lovely, like the average Mason's lovely. It's the total exposure, here we go, back to Saturn, the total exposure of how we've been so profoundly, brilliantly manipulated by the dark practitioners. And ultimately, it is through the money supply. It is through the black magic of money in the Federal Reserve. I mean, when the Federal Reserve was set up on Jekyll Island, for goodness sake, the symbolism is replete there. It's so full of it. And the sinking of the Titanic. And it's so profoundly satanic and clever. And the great thing is, symbolism will be their downfall. Q told us that. We, the people, are really beginning to see it. So we need to buckle up, Buttercup, as that lady says, I can't remember her name, because it is a time of transition. And the 2026 has been brutal compared to 2025 for all of us because it's a fire horse year. What does that mean? Most of the planets, if not all the planets, the outer planets certainly, have all been in fire and air signs. There's no Earth. Now, we have right now a little respite. We have the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, but Virgo is mutable Earth. We're not dealing with Capricorn and Taurus here. We actually, the only planet to be in a fixed Earth is Chiron, our wound. Our wound is grounding. Our wound is not being able to be grounded. We have to double down. And I know I can speak with authority on this because I have no Earth in my chart. So I have to practice this profoundly. That's why I think I'm a good teacher, because we're in this together. So the point here is barefoot on the ground, barefoot on the ground. Well, of course, I wouldn't expect anything else from you, brother. So, let's stay the observer and we watch the Venus do her beautiful geometric patterns, which are the Chartres cathedrals, which are the cymatics, which are the Goethes of the old world, of Tartaria, of Lick architecture being frozen music and music being liquid architecture. But let's not get too caught up in it. And at the end of the day, great stuff is happening. And if the community needs to hear more stuff about Ukraine or the oil, I'm happy to go into it. But I don't think our community needs more of that. I just think stay the observer, stay creative. Get close to animals, get close to children, in the good way, you see? Don't invert it.
Well, thank you for that handy hint, Uncle. All right, what do we truly value? The external upheaval is also facing, or forcing, forgive me, an internal reckoning, as I alluded to earlier, with what I regard as this fairly seismic kind of eclipse, solar and lunar passage, which for me was a very real phenomenon. And I was watching, I guess, just through the lens of my own emotional body and my own emotional heart, watching and seeing the reality of what that corridor actually represents in terms of identity, to either conflate and inflate false identity or to crash and burn and actually resurrect true identity. So for me, that's a real kind of reckoning, again, existential reckoning kind of complex I'm speaking about. But the external upheaval is also forcing an internal reckoning. That's the point. Venus retrograde in Scorpio asks, what remains when everything superficial is stripped away? Are our relationships truly rooted? Do our professed values correspond with how we actually live? And are the things that we desire genuinely feeding us, or have we simply become attached or addicted to them? So the question, George, is more or less, what is Venus in Scorpio asking us to confront about money, about relationship, about authenticity, and the things that we believe we value?
Okay, so you see, with the Scorpio archetype, it is so much about death and resurrection. And Pluto in the modern rules Scorpio, in the ancient it's Mars. The thing is, we're really being forced, because the Pisces eclipse has acted as a universal solvent, dissolving artificial, dissolving low frequency dissonance that has been stored within the creative subconscious. Everything with water, especially Scorpio and Pisces, is all about the subconscious. This is very Jungian here. So at the optimum, when we do the work, when we see the relationship, whether it's lover, business partner, friendship, mum, dad, daughter, when we look at it, how is it serving me and as far as my frequency? And of course, by you elevating it, you're going to help them elevate, even if it's by retreating and moving on. Because by them experiencing the absence and the negation, it could trigger some positive response towards their consciousness. See, at the optimum, what happens here is the Venus in Scorpio, much like the lunar the lunar node in Pisces, which is the last part of the Pisces experience, because now we're on the Aquarius Leo axis for the next 16, 17 months, is really about reconnecting with your own divine blueprint. And I found this to be very, very, very strong in my case. I mean, I have 3 planets in Pisces at 4 degrees Pisces, so it's in, like you, it's been quite intense. And for me, it's been, especially the last few months, I've been really creating some interesting music and going deeper, less podcasts actually, much more in the private small groups. That's just where I'm at. And so in some ways, there's a synthesis being created where our authentic creation requires an unpolluted canvas. So you strip away the mimicry, you strip away the egoic performance, which we all have, absolutely. And this transit is allowing us to step into the organic timeline that people like our friend Laura Eisenhower speaks so brilliantly of. So our soul can reemerge purer and more shiny, more literally brilliant. And we can anchor in that authentic creation in order to go to that higher dimensional level. And that's how we reverse engineer and live longer, because our bodies start to literally reflect that auric embodiment. And that's the last stage, of course, of the reddening, isn't it? That's the last stage of the alchemical process.
Yes.
You become embodied.
Yes, beautifully put, beautifully put. So restoring balance and personal power. So it is not enough to observe these forces. We must learn how to work with them. So George, you speak about balancing wood, growth, which is growth and vision, with fire, which is passion and illumination, earth, which is stability and embodiment. Embodiment! The only thing that matters right now, in my view, is embodiment. Metal, which is discernment and integrity, and water, which is depth, wisdom, and adaptability. So with earth and metal particularly lacking, grounding and discernment become essential. So the question, George, is what practices can help us restore balance, maintain frequency, and remain grounded and sovereign throughout this period of change? And I mean remain grounded and sovereign in truth, meaning to say in embodiment, not as a fucking idea. Everyone
Right.
claims to be sovereign. Everyone claims to be, this, that, and the other. But in truth, embodied sovereignty in this period of change. Speak to that.
So I think periods in our weekly cycle, including being on your own, but being in nature with animals, and barefoot, but also if you're in big cities and you don't have access to nature, really get involved in the latest PMF technology, the pulse electromagnetic field technology. It really works. I mean, I'm going to suffice to say that I think some of the latest stuff is white hat technology. I think it is early precursors to what we would call med beds, because I have already been putting many patients on some of this technology. I'm not going to talk about brands because, again, it's not about that. It's about people finding their own way in to that. Because that's the future. You know, for me, it's not going to be selling a specific brand. It's like, no, do your research, find the pulse electromagnetic, do your structured water, have fun with it. You know, work with some crystals. It actually works. And I mean, I've got some new technology where I can really create really great structured water, and my mineral content is better than it has been before. I'm working more with sea moss. Our community is good at this. I think in a way, the more you explore down it and you have fun doing it, that's the other ingredient, is the spiritual side. Try and have fun do it. Don't look at it as either a labor or my gosh, I'm worried I need this, someone else has got that. Keep breathing. Breath work, so important. In some ways, I would say for a lot of us, don't overdo plant medicine. I'm not saying it's not good, but really build up your own temple first through nature, because then if you do then end up doing plant medicine, you're going to have an amazing journey because your system is purer. We can really perfect our system. Now, of course, we're still fighting the outside. We're still dealing with chemtrails. We're still dealing with a lot of residual deep state apparatus, which is still needing to be dismantled. But ultimately, with, as you mentioned, the 5 elements, because we're talking about, we brought metal in and wood, is because the metal actually in the earth is what's lacking in the cosmic sky right now. And so that type of embodiment and stability that earth represents, the cultivation, the relationship, we have to be very grounded in being able to understand what works for us. And putting good boundaries down is essential. Even in the short term, if it's going to hurt you, many of our community are empaths. Many are going to find it very hard to say no. And basically, because I get this a lot as a therapist, people want to move on, but they don't want to hurt that person. And I always say this, if number 1 is the pure empath, and number 10 is the pure narcissist, actually, because we live in polarity consciousness, we need to be exercising between 4 and 6. So in our community, more empaths. That means you've got to become more narcissistic. And I know that's hard, because you've got to find the balance in that polarity. And so especially with metal being absent at the moment, and earth being absent, more so in the cosmic weather, you've really got to double down on the discernment, the structure, which is metal, the integrity, the refinement. And the way to do that is through good food, good water, good nature, good love, relational, bi-directional relationships with animals and human beings.
Beautifully stated. Thank you, George. And just apologies, I was reading a bunch of messages here from people, and I apologize.
I can't hear again.
Oh,
something's gone wrong with my...
Christy, are you hearing me? Yes or no?
I'm going to have to come back in.
Yeah, I'm afraid when you leave the studio, sometimes when you come back, the audio messes up for the guest.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, just apologies to those folks saying that the noise was unbearable behind me. Yeah, I went to bed in this resort last night, plugged my computer in to charge fully, and pulled it out 15 minutes before coming on live to discover that the entire plug socket wasn't working. So my computer was on less than 10%. And I knew I started broadcasting in this room, and then I had to go out to the only plug point available by the private pool, and I couldn't stop the fountain. So I apologize for that. I'm back indoors because I have a little bit of charge, enough to really wind up this conversation with George. Christy, thanks for anchoring. Are you hearing me again, George?
I am. I'm sorry. It must be. I'm in the basement.
No, it's not your mistake. Apparently there's a technical glitch when I whatever. You're with us, and thank you for this. Okay, let's just round this off. In broad sweep, how are you seeing this year playing out? And the reason I'm asking that is because I think and I feel that the sword of Damocles is kind of dropping round about now. And we're about to see a play out of huge apocalyptic, iconoclastic kind of events, which are likely to invite us into a psycho-civilizational trauma response, which would naturally be, oops, 9/11, hunker down, declare war against Islam, and allow governments to take control of another cycle of satanic sacrifice of innocence. Or, no, the images I am seeing are partly real, partly conflated, many of them completely AI engendered.
Correct.
This is mindfuckery at a scale never seen before in recorded history. I am not going to be situating my life force and my attention into these memes. I am not going to perpetuate them with life force. I'm going to suspend all attention and life force into the memology that's being orchestrated and engineered. I am instead going to withdraw and focus my attention, my life force, purely on ideation, my own coherence with the divine flame, my own identification with the divine mantle, with the divine blueprint, my own knowledge and identification with the resurrection of the angelic human from an arcane cycle of entropy and death, a descension from immortal immanence into mortality, and now the emergence through into this cornucopia of promise, this emergent light of the new earth, the geometry of light that bids adieu, farewell to the fallen light of Atlantis for the first time in 13,000 years. And the degree to which each of us are being invited into becoming now the living testament, the living gospel, the living witness, the progenitors of this kingdom of heaven on earth, which is precisely why we have to say goodbye to all that is synthetic. And we must only embrace all that is real and true. But speak to that in closing. What are we seeing in the final third of this year? We've come through 2/3 of the year. We're entering into the last third. What are you seeing?
I mean, the big issues are still actually the same issues, which are very positive. All the outer planets making this beautiful trine. We've talked about the basket. You've got Pluto in Aquarius at 4 degrees, and you've got Gemini. You've got Uranus in Gemini at 4 degrees, and then right in the middle you've got Neptune at 4 degrees Aries, with Saturn bouncing close back to it. This is massive, supportive restructuring towards what I would call the cosmic citizen. I mean, this is one way to describe it. And of course, it's coming from the Americas, and it's coming from Russia. And in our community, we're actually all quite aware of that. That doesn't really need unpacking, because this cosmic citizenship is not actually about escaping Earth. It's actually about finally becoming worthy custodians of her. And this is where the ancients and the American gurus, as far as the Native American gurus, have always spoken of this. And the fall of Atlantis was the failure to hold that truth. And the high Atlantis, which I feel personally I resonate with, is the integration of the consciousness with the technology. Because on other planets, I feel this, that the technology was always, when it's good planet, was there to purely support the divine human blueprint. And humans live on other planets in different variations of consciousness and dimensionality. So we've really got to, in a way, step into, are we ready for one another? Are we really, even before the disclosure of the government, from the governments, which is happening, and we've got to really rediscover the hidden architecture within ourselves. And this is the spiritual work that you speak of. You see, it's really about, so who am I, and how do I relate to the people around me? Because once we start doing that real supportive interrelational work, the rest will take care of itself, because that's the human resonance writ large. That is suddenly when the planet vibrates at an energy field which the dastardly lower 3D and even lower 4D, they just can't hold it anymore. And literally, they just pop, go. So I think that's where we're at, and it's very supportive. So in sum, the astrological weather, yes, we've got the Venus going into her shadow in her fall in Scorpio, but that's personal. So I'm speaking to each and every one of you now. How are you cleaning up your relationships? How am I cleaning up my relationships of all types, of all hues? in order to allow the positive cosmic weather to really give you the wind up on your back for you to go to the next level.
Wow. Love that. George, thank you. Where are you situated right now, and
So
what are your movements?
I'm really excited because I'm in North Carolina. I'm doing some workshops and privates down here. I've got all my sound therapy bowls. I've been asked to be the custodian of these incredible Tibetan Nepalese bowls. I mean, they're incredible. They're 400, 500, 700 years old, and I'm touring with them. And I'm even allowing some of them to go into other people's possession, depending on who they are. And I'm touring across the United States. I'm going to the Midwest. I'm doing events in the Dakotas, Montana. I'm doing a lot of stuff in Colorado and the Southwest in Arizona. So I've got an amazing 2 months ahead, actually, of really getting to see what's happening in this beautiful country we call the United States, which is the new Atlantis.
Very good. And what are you doing in November, December?
I don't know. I may go to Sri Lanka. I haven't decided.
Okay, I need to make a phone call to you later this afternoon. So be on standby. I'm going to get your handy number from Christy and call you after this. Okay. George, thank you so very, very much. It's so beautiful.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, George. I'm going to jump in and just round up. And lots of adulation coming in for you, George. I mean, this audience just absolutely adores you, and we have a huge audience today, so that's good to see. But George Lewis, thank you.
Lots of love. Bye, everyone.
Okay, friend, just winding up, friends. Final thoughts, reflections. Very difficult to follow on from George and keep the keep the sense of prose moving forward. Dragon's Blood is one of the segments I want you to pay attention to today. That's the third segment, done with an amazing guy called RasRAH. Thanks, Christy. Sorry, I'm switching things around here in the wrong order, but this just comes to mind. I think this is an important conversation. Dragon's Blood, the divine right to rule. This is a piece I'm increasingly want to forensically dig into, drill into, and understand what is this fractal antenna element in the blood, especially the blue blood, that has inspired the notion of divine right to rule for thousands of years. I think it's an important piece for us to understand at this end of time, right? As the fall of Cronus, the fall of the crowns, and the end of Vaticanus, the empire of evil, begins to dismantle and deconstruct. I think it's really important that we commoners, and no, I'm not a fucking Rothschild, incidentally, but I kind of wish I was sometimes, because then I could just do hard analysis on myself, that'd be easy. But I think for us common folk, good red-blooded, warm-blooded Homo sapiens sapien, this is an important subject. And to understand the importance and the sanctity of blood, and why blood has been so of such import to the invisible masters and the watchers, so to speak, over millennia. So we begin to drill into that conversation with RasRAH. But prior to that is beyond good and evil. And this is the mechanics of duality with Charles Formosa. Incredible mind, incredible knowledge base. So enjoy that piece. And then finally, the last segment is What on Earth is Ascension? And this was an extract taken from my Mayan Riviera retreat a couple of months back, and promised to the Lazarus community, but very much worth watching. And that's pretty much it. Christy, is there anything you can put up on the Egyptian tour? I'm doing this mythic odyssey of Egypt, the Nile and the Holy Land, and that's going to be taking place in November. So please, friends, anyone wanting to check that out, Christy, if you could just ensure that the links are put in everywhere, I'd appreciate that, so people can sign up for that. And I'll be doing a lot more promotions on this mythic odyssey in the course of the next couple of weeks. When I get to Europe, I'll start to promote it quite heavily. I think it's going to be very well attended. I'm certainly looking forward to it. And of course, Brad Olson, one of the greatest archaeocosmologists in the world, is joining me His name is unfortunately covered up there by a QR code, which is an unfortunate piece of graphic. There we go, thank you. But that's Brad Olson, and my beloved friend Sue Wong and a bunch of other friends are also coming. It's going to be turning into a real sort of jamboree event, which will be filmed as well. All right, friends, I think that's about it. You can remove the graphic now, Christy. I'm winding up. Thank you. So just to say thank you very much indeed for attending. Fantastic audience today. Let me just quickly look at the comments in case there's anything I need to address. Nope, just lots of gratitude from a very loving audience. And I thank you all for it. And I will speak to you next from Portugal. All right, much love. Thank you, Christy.